Hello everybody and welcome to the third day of the Hearthstone Grand Prix here at DreamHack Summer in Jönköping, Sweden. My name is Nimsh and I'm here with Sodal and Raven to bring you the first match. But first, guys, how are you doing? This is the first day, the third day. We had a couple of great days of Hearthstone, a lot of tournaments because not only the main event, also the side events. So how are you doing after all this?
Yeah, it's been a long old journey to get here. 9 rounds of Swiss, got the top 16 round done yesterday as well. So these players have already had a hell of a journey to get to where they are right now. I think right from the start, you can say that every player in this top 8 has already achieved something monumental just getting through this bracket to be where they are. So I'm excited to see it come to a conclusion. Lots of great names in the top 8, great games coming up.
Yeah, like talking about great names, let's actually look at the bracket, how it looks right now, and who made it to the top 8. So, Raven, who do you see that you know, and who are you excited about?
Yeah, so I'm excited about this first game as well. I'm kind of glad to cast it because we've not seen Hoej on stream yet, I believe, so it's going to be really good to see him play. We made a joke earlier, it's because we knew he was going to get to top 8, so we didn't need to cast him. But I'm really excited for ball control, of course, my teammate, so really good performance from him so far this tournament. But just excited about the top 8 overall. I mean, look at those players. We have a huge chunk of well-known, top-end pro players, as well as a couple of names that we know you're still learning about over the weekend, Slug being one of them, and obviously Tessin we know from PGL, but yet another strong performance here at DreamHack for him.
Yeah, it's actually amazing that from the 200 people that we had, we still, looking at the top 8 after all those rounds of Swiss, 9 rounds of Swiss, and the first round of top 16, we still know most of those guys. Even though a lot of known names have fallen during the tournament, still, JJ, RDU, Hoej, those are the names you see all of the time in the top 8. Frozen making top 16 at DreamHack Austin, here again, top 8. So a lot of those names are just great players, and I'm super excited to see who is going to be our champion this time.
Yeah, there's a great mix of consistency and up-and-comers here. JJ is like the first name that you pencil into any top 8 these days. You kind of just start, I'll just put his name there now. Like I'm sure he's going to get there. RDU, of course, has a chance to be a repeat DreamHack champion, but on top of that, you always want those underdog stories sprinkled in there because those are the guys that often generate the most discussion. People want to see these new guys. It's like, okay, this guy's made a breakout here. Let's watch him play. Is he any good? Like everyone wants to evaluate these new players. They get their moment in the spotlight. So you always want a couple of underdog stories coming through too.
Yeah, but Spotlight is not the only thing. Those guys are fighting for great prizes. So let's look at the prize breakdown because not only money is on the line, but also the HCT points. So the first place is going to get $8,000 and 15 HCT points, then 4,000 for the second place. And this is a lot of money, but HCT points, Raven, what are those?
Yeah, so basically, these are the points you need to play in the Hearthstone Championship Tour circuit, and there's the summer season is coming up, and the best thing here is for first and probably even second place, it's almost a guaranteed spot in the prelims for summer, and this is almost the last chance for any player to get in and book that spot at BlizzCon for the World Championship finals. So the points, the money's fantastic, the trophy is also fantastic, but the points to almost just guarantee your spot in the prelims is of the utmost importance to these guys.
Yeah, it's really important because if you don't get the points, you'll have to grind the open cups, and it's actually like when you win, you get 3 points, and it's a lot of time to be able to play a tournament. And then if you just get 4th, you get nothing. It's just 3 points for the first place, second for the second.
Yeah, and even yesterday, Firebat was saying if you place well and it gives you just automatically after this weekend enough points to get into the prelims, then you don't have to spend time, like fighting on ladder on the last day, grinding the hours to get like top 50, top 10, whatever. And you don't have to grind those tournaments out. You can literally spend all the time just prepping for the tournament and giving yourself the best chance possible.
And that's a big deal because when you're being forced to play, optimal ladder decks to try and hit ladder finishes, then that's very, very different from what you end up playing in the tournament meta because, primarily you're dealing with a ban format when you play in a tournament, and that's automatically so different from ladder. So if you can lock up qualification now, get those big 10 points, 15 points, get yourself in there, then you can just say, all right, I'm going to start building my lineup right now, and I'm just going to practice these decks. I'm going to lab it out with my practice partners. Like, forget about ladder for now. This is all about BlizzCon.
Certainly, the points are great, but we have a full day of Hearthstone for you guys today. So let's look at the schedule and how do we plan, because we also have Firebat and Lothar with us who will be casting as well. So we start with the pre-show, as you can see right now. Then we start with the match 1, and we go forward with all the matches, and then semi-final 1, semi-final 2, and the grand final. Somebody is going to be the DreamHack Summer champion, just following the footsteps of RDU and Tidler Celestial, and obviously all the other DreamHack champions that we had across the land.
Across the land.
Let's pick our favorites, guys. So, who do you think is going to win this?
I mean,
So you've got to phrase the question correct here. Who do you think is going to win? Who do you want to win? And like
right. So
mind and heart.
Two
Yeah.
slightly
the head
different
and heart.
questions,
So I have two heart picks here. Ball control taking it for the UK would be amazing. You know, great boon for our country. I think Hearthstone is like one of the esports where the UK has genuinely world-class players in it. We're not really that competitive in most other games, so ball control taking it home for the UK would be awesome. Of course, JJ as well, I'm rooting for. In terms of who I think might win, everything RDU has said about his lineup, he has backed up. So if he continues doing that, he is looking in great shape. I was in the hotel room last night with Lothar, who said, I'm going to try this double flame strike thing out. And he was just sat there on his iPad in bed playing Hearthstone. Every time he drew flame strike, it was just like, RDU was right. This flame strike is nuts. So, yeah, RDU is looking in good shape.
Raven.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going with ball control as well. There's the UK side of it. He's my teammate, friend. I actually think he's a fantastic player, and you know, he's just come off the back of a good win in the UK Pro League, and I think this is just the next step he needs to take, and he definitely has the ability to. But I've got two more picks as well. I'm going to agree with RDU, the pick there, because as you said, everything he said so far, he's been destroying it, and he said Tempo Mage is the deck for this format and for this tournament, and no one else, or very few people have realized this. And obviously, RDU is very confident in his build, so he's a scary opponent right now. But also, I'm a huge fan of Hoej, and he's just an extremely consistent, really, really strong player. And he's brought a bit of a different lineup to the standard we've seen overall, but I'm pretty confident he's got a good chance.
All right. Me, myself, I'm rooting for Hoej as well. He's in this tournament, he's like a silent assassin. Like, he made it to the top 16 or top 8 even in the DreamHack Winter.
Yep.
And right now, we haven't featured him at all, but he was just silently killing people on the sidelines and advancing. Like, he was able to win versus Orange in top 16, a match that we haven't featured, and get to the top 8. So he was fighting his way through to be able to be here. And he's, you know, he doesn't talk much, but he really knows Hearthstone, and he was practicing a lot. So Hoej will be my first pick, and the second pick will be Maverick, just returning from his retirement. Maverick, who made top 8 at the European Championships last year, and you know, he is one of those guys who plays ladder all the time, but he also has really strong practice partners from France, and France has this enclosed group of playtesters where Maverick is just playing versus all of them. So I really root for Maverick to actually take the tournament as well and get his deserved spotlight.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say with this top 8, pretty happy with anyone.
Yeah.
It's just I'm glad we've got some amazing games coming up and some great matchups in terms of the players as well.
Right, I'm totally happy to throw Hoej into that mix as well, because like you said, we just haven't seen him on stream. We don't know how his lineup is functioning, but he's definitely a player that's a huge threat. You know, he said to me after he won his top 16 game, he's like, "Oh yeah, I won. Do I get to be on stream now?" Because he drew the short straw in terms of the top 16 games and didn't get featured. We didn't see him the whole way through the Swiss, so he's glad to be sat there in the hot seat right now in front of the stream, and this is where he thrives. He is probably better at handling pressure and mastering the mental side of Hearthstone. Hoej is probably better than that than any other player I've seen. So.
Definitely, especially if you watch his stream and the bird lands on his shoulder and just like doesn't flinch. So it's just amazing how
like,
much mental discipline he has.
I've cast games of Hoej back in like unstable portal days, right? And his opponent could do the craziest portal, like almost game-winning play, and he's just like, yeah, that's fine, okay. And you know, and just carries on playing. He doesn't even look phased, and that is a pretty good trait to have in a game like this.
Definitely. Also, before we start the first round, I want to give a shout out to all the people who are playing in the side events, and I actually have a list of the winners. So we talked to Mitsuhide, and he actually showed his match versus Alish. He was able to take that event. So Mitsuhide is one of the winners. He won the side event too. We have Cursed. We've mentioned Cursed from Greece winning the side event #1. AK Wonder was able to actually, after getting knocked out from the main event, he was able to win side event #3. Then we have Thol Menace, I believe from Greece as well, winning the side event 4. And Deathlo from Greece, again, winning side event #5. So the Greek guys are really rocking those size events. And we have some of them today, I believe, as well. So lots of Hearthstone happening here.
Yeah, on top of that, Cursed actually picked up another top 8 as well in one of the other side events. So incredible performance from him and from Greece in general. But all of those, I think, taking home $500 a piece for those side events. So great initiative, I think, from DreamHack to just provide these players who are knocked out something to do. You know, these guys, they come here and they're generally competitively driven. So a lot of them just want to be grinding competition the whole time. So there's always a new tournament that you can enter in here on the DreamHack floor.
Definitely. And the match that we're going to see now is Hoej versus Tessin. And guys, tell me, what do you think? Who is going to take it? Who is favored lineup-wise, at least?
Well, I know Hoej certainly feels like he has an edge because his Warlock wasn't banned. This is what you were saying to me just before we came on. He was expecting the Warlock ban. He's brought Reno Lock to this tournament that we haven't seen, and he thinks it's effectively very powerful against Tessin's lineup. Was surprised that he gets to keep it.
Yeah, so the Warrior was banned, and yeah, the first thing, because I was there when Hoej got told the ban, and he was like, oh, you didn't ban Warlock. Cool. So we'll see how that turns out.
Yeah, definitely. The game is starting right now, so have fun, guys.
Thank you so much, Nimch. So we are going to start off with the Warrior versus the Druid from Hoej. Hoej has somewhat taken over the AKA Wonder lineup in this tournament. He's the guy favoring the Cthulhu decks this time around. So we'll see how that works out for him. It's obviously done very well for him so far. But do you have much experience in this matchup? I know you've messed around a little bit with Tempo Warrior in the past. Do you have much Cthulhu Druid experience?
Yeah, it's all about getting the executes at the right time, because the thing about Cthulhu Druid is you can just lay down so many huge taunts. They have like the biggest taunts in the game, like Dark Arakoa, Twin Emps, even just Druids of the Claw causing problems. Then if they play Ancients of War as well, the second you can't deal with them, you can just never get to the Druid to finish them off. You know, you can get them to around like 10, 12 normally, but then if they can start just dropping taunt after taunt after taunt, a lot of the time, unless you've already got the answer there and then, you just can't deal with it as a warrior, and then just Cthulhu gets played and you lose. Like
that's the big thing. You only have these 2 executes, and if you're trying to go aggro, you want to be executing those taunts out the way so you can push. But then suddenly there's other really high priority targets. There's Fandral that needs to be dealt with. You can't leave that guy on the board. And then suddenly if Cthulhu comes down and you've used both your executes and you haven't just won the game that turn, then you are in a world of trouble.
Yeah, the opening hand looking pretty okay for Tess so far, though. He does have the the Fiery War Axe, not the biggest deal in this matchup specifically, but it's going to be useful taking down some of the early Cthulhu minions as well, because I think the Cthulhu Druid's one of the heavier decks on cultists. Plays the most overall. So we do see the Disciple there in hand as well, which is pretty good to clear up.
Yeah, Hoej has standard Druid problems here, which is too many options. Most times on turn 2, normal decks that are played by mere mortals only have the option of playing the 2-mana card in their hand. Druids can operate on Druid time and decide to go all the way through to 4-drop there, but he's just going to play out the Blood Mage to cycle it. That keeps his Innovate in hand for the Druid of the Claw, so we can now cycle out his curve being 5 into 4, then potentially Disciple plus a Hero Power on turn 5 again.
Yeah, I like going 2-5-4 in this. It just it feels a lot...
2-5-4, standard curve.
Yeah, that's just one of those Druid curve things, right? But I really like this. It probably won't change. I don't know if the Acolyte alters too much.
No, I think the reason he felt safe playing the Blood Mage here is that if Acolyte came down to punish it, he had the Druid of the Claw to come out. So I mean, you can even just charge straight in, right? But that is a little bit weak to War Axe. So.
I mean, I just like Taunt. If it gets executed this early, then you're feeling pretty good. Like, it's not too bad. It looks like Hoej is going to favor just the removal of the Acolyte. So what this does is protect against, Ghoul Execute or something like that. Oh, sorry, you couldn't Ghoul Execute. It's on 3 mana.
These Slam Execute.
Yeah, just any form of awkward, either the Execute and then the Acolyte getting multiple value is the key thing there.
Yeah, and I think card-starving Tempo Warrior is the #1 way you beat them. If they run out of resources, there are quite a lot of low-value cards in the deck that are used as pings and combo activators. So if you can leave them with very few resources in hand, it's quite often that they don't have the tools to pressure you. Something that I've seen Loyan do with great effect, just play around Battle Rage to the extent of not attacking a warrior who's at 38. Not just...
don't let them weapon in.
Right, not even just activating Battle Rage, but don't put their health in a range where they can weapon one of your minions and then Battle Rage.
Yeah, and the dual benefit as well is, especially when the card he traded into with Acolyte, is you're stopping the multiple card draw from Acolyte and affecting the board to the extent of not proccing Battle Rages, because you're not leaving minions on the board to Battle Rage. So yeah, it was I really like the play, and Cthulhu's Chosen comes down now. It's kind of an awkward minion to deal with. Tessin does have an answer, but when you've got to deal with that Divine Shield, even though the minion's only got 2 health, and then go into it, it's kind of awkward.
Yeah, having the source of 1 damage on the board is nice, though, just to ping off the Divine Shield as efficiently as you can. It does mean the minion gets eaten, but it's only Sir Finley. Sir Finley has done his job. He's changed the hero power into something a little bit more proactive, but Paladin probably not what Tessin would have been looking for. He would have been looking for a nice juicy Warlock hero power a lot of the time there, just to make sure he's going to cycle through, since there's no Battle Rage in hand just yet. Is able to curve out with the Bloodhoof Brave right now, though.
Yeah, and this is interesting as well, because there's the actual option for swipe clear. And this Thalnos has just been just chilling on the board for most of the turn. That doesn't happen often. Normally you play it, does its job that turn, dead next turn. But managed to do, hide away from Tessin so far. But the only problem with the swipe is you're not developing any minions yourself. But it's one of the better ways he's got of clearing Bloodhoof Brave, which is a problem.
It is. He does have the option to just not quite curve out, but just develop Cthulhu's Chosen here, which is a 4 damage source on the board. So if that trade is able to happen between the 4-2 and the 2-6, suddenly the 2-6 is down to 2 health. You then have potential swipe damage, residual swipe damage if the Blood Mage sticks around, and you have a Disciple of Cthulhu in your hand that can finish it off. But Hoej is just going to address the problem in front of him, cycle out this Acolyte, picks up Innovate number 2, which is a good time for it because any turn after this, it starts to become a little bit useless.
Yeah, exactly. You would really want to get it to just use early on, and now he has 2, even with the 6-drop and 4-drop in hand, you can just extend later on to go to 10 mana, which isn't going to be too bad. But I think the play there I kind of like with the swipe because Warrior has a lot of ways of dealing with minions that doesn't require them to trade, right? So if he could deal with the Chosen and then the Bloodhoof is still on the board, and it's just same again, except it's a turn later, the Warriors develop more minions or draw more cards, and then you're in a little bit more of a sticky situation as the Druid.
Yeah, I think possibly the swipe was kind of a high-value resource at that point because Tessin has picked Paladin Hero Power as his choice, so if suddenly the board starts to get multiple 1/1s on, then that swipe might be useful in the future. But yeah, as you said, something like Ravaging Ghoul plus another weapon would have ripped that board apart. Divine Shield gone, Blood Mage gone, axe down the minion, so that would leave him in a mess where he'd then have to like swipe Hero Power the 5/5 that was remaining. So definitely don't mind him activating the swipe there, but now his power minions, these big beefy taunts that you were talking about at the start of the game, Raven, are coming down, has both Dark Arakoas in hand now, and even that Innovate play on a following turn, he can possibly play Dark Arakoa plus another minion on the same turn. Since there's no brawl in Tempo Warrior, going wide with like big chunky minions is one of the primary ways you beat them, because a small Zooey board gets whirlwinded.
Well, already, like, Execute 1 gone.
Yeah.
And then the problem now, the next Arakoa is coming down. There isn't an Execute, but there's going to be enough damage to go through it. But the Arakoa also has 5 attack. And will kill all of these minions on the board if he chooses to just trade straight in.
Or, alternatively, you could play 2 4/6s this turn.
Yeah.
That seems good too.
Yeah, and this is the problem as well. Like, Execute Arakoa, that seems completely reasonable. How else are you going to get through it? Now there's 2 more guys that your board doesn't really trade into that well. And then after that, there's going to be another Dark Arakoa, and then potentially an Ancient of War. Like, what does the Warrior do?
All right, we've seen one crazy outing from Gladiator's Longbow this game. He gets it! Wow! I'm so mad right now.
We said Hoej does not visually respond to anything that happens. He smiled then, so that was about as much as we're going to get. But Hoej was like, okay, Cursed Blade, I can crack a smile for this one.
So just in case you've been living under a rock and don't know what the big deal is here, there are 20 collectible weapons in standard format. So 1 out of 20 times you get this weapon, which is Cursed Blade. What it does is double the attack that you take on your hero. Not just from swinging the weapon, all damage that you take is doubled while you have this weapon equipped. So he is in a serious mess right now.
No surprise the taunts were left up.
Right, the saving grace is that he has a Wrathy Weaponsmith in his hand, so he'll be trying to overwrite that weapon now immediately on the following turn. But swipe here to take out one of these. Okay, he's going to swipe face. That's 8 damage immediately. And the Disciple of Cthulhu goes through. Yeah, trade with the 2 taunts. Hero Power face. That is lethal. There was probably a wide variety of ways you can kill your opponent when they're taking double damage from everything you do. But I'm mad. I wanted one game where a Malkorok was played and no caster in the building said the words Cursed Blade. Like, I would have liked that to happen. Unfortunately, we couldn't avoid it. Cursed Blade happened. You could argue a deciding factor in that game, but Tessin was in a world of trouble anyway. He would have needed Gladiator's Longbow or Gorehowl, basically, from that to actually have a positive effect.
What the Cursed Blade did was probably just speed up the overall outcome of the game.
Just put him out of his misery.
Yeah, exactly. Because as we said, if those 2 taunts could have been dealt with the Twin Imps, then Arakoa comes down, and then the Druid's still drawing. There was still Cthulhu's Chosen, the Disciple to play. It's just threat after threat, and the Warrior just cannot keep up. And that is like other than the Cursed Blade, that's just like a textbook way that matchup goes a lot of the time.
Other than the Cursed Blade. Oh yeah, every time I play against Warrior, they get Cursed Blade.
Yeah, that's how you win, right? They Cursed Blade, you just hit them in the face.
All right, so Tessin is going to move over to his Zoo Warlock. This is a pretty aggressive list. He's favoring Doomguards over Leroy, but he also has a Soulfire in there as well. So he has tripled up on the discard cards, which is rare these days. Back in the day, it was standard. You just played 2 Soulfires, 2 Doomguards. That was Zoo, and no one really thought twice about it. But now people are being a bit more careful with how these discard mechanics interact with each other. Tessin is playing 3 of them, though, but he does also have a Flame Imp and a Peddler in his opening hand. These are the dudes you want against Druid. You want to beat them up nice and quickly, because if you get your low power minions, then suddenly you give them too much time to just start Arakoaing you. They have time to draw a swipe, etc.
Yeah, and one of the benefits of actually, one of the reasons I quite like Cthulhu Druid is you do have early stuff as well. It's not like like Ramp Druid of old where you don't really have anything early, and then your whole point is to ramp and then try and catch up late game because you're ahead in mana. You do actually have a lot of early stuff to play, so there is there's a good chance that you can that Hoej can challenge these minions. But as you said, Flame Imp, Peddler, these are the ones you want as the Zoo player here.
Yeah, and the 10 mana card in the opening hand is not what he wants, but the other 3 cards that we didn't quite get to see are looking a bit more promising. Living Roots to contest the Flame Imp immediately. Wrath as well to be another removal option. Has a swipe, but he's going to want something to get himself onto the board. Disciple of Cthulhu would be perfect.
Yeah, Rag definitely a little bit early to the party.
Yes. Hand is looking a little bit chunky for the matchup that you're facing, but he does have time to stall and try and pick up some mid-game options. But Dark Peddler means that there will be plenty of resources in hand for Tessin to keep going, and he'll probably, with 1 Power Overwhelming in hand already, be looking to pick up another Flame Imp here, ideally.
Yeah. Can't see his choice on screen, though, but it was a very quick shift to Xerus. Why not?
Get him.
So, for those people who also have been living under a rock, the shift
or people who only like to play good cards.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I forgot about your opinions on this card.
Yeah.
So basically it's a 1-drop that every single turn of the player who has it in their hand, he changes into a just random minion. And this happens every single turn. So it doesn't change once. Every single time he's still in your hand, he'll continue to alter to just a random minion. It's like a ongoing unstable portal, except the cost isn't reduced, right? It's just a standard version of that minion. So
and
you could see some crazy stuff here.
You actually have a larger element of control as well than you do over unstable portal, because you pick the turn where you play it. You know, sometimes you get that situation where you're like, this is okay. I can do better, though. I'm going to wait 1 more turn.
And if you're not under any pressure and you don't need to play it, you can be like, well, every single turn that happens, the odds increase that you're going to get a really good minion, right? Because you're just cycling through the minions.
What I will say is we didn't get to see the Discover there because we had a little bit of a spectator bug by the looks of things, but generally, picking Xerus is indicative of a bad Peddler.
Yeah.
It's
not like, oh, Xerus,
right. It's the answer when it's there up against a couple of other poor cards, and you think, well, okay, eventually this Xerus is going to be better than, this Murloc Raider or whatever else I got offered. So.
Yeah, and also, we see there Xerus transforming into Ice Howl this turn. That's also a problem with Xerus. Sometimes it's a 9 mana card on turn 3.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not going to be played. So Ice Howl is going to be skipped this turn, but this is not actually looking too great for Tessin.
Yeah,
there's just no power plays. It's just Possessed Villager, great. 1/1 Death Rattle, fantastic. He has the trade-up mechanics of Power Overwhelming and Abusive Sergeant. But it doesn't do anything at this point. You need the actual bigger minions to start cycling. Councilman would have been really nice there on an empty board. 1/5 that turn, then build on it next turn with something like Forbidden Ritual or just a Villager and some more minions.
Yeah, like I said, you want to go Flame Imp. You want to hit a 3-drop. You want to make sure that you have power on the board so you're beating them up quickly, because from Hoej's perspective here, he's chilling at 30. Now, he might just feel comfortable enough to just go ahead and Wild Growth right now, which starts to make his hand look a little bit more appealing. If he was under more pressure, you'd have to see a swipe play this turn. He'd have less mana available to him in the future, and the swipe would be gone. I think the consideration from Hoej there, why you saw him take some time, is that he can play around Defender of Argus by swiping face now. But that still, it would be a huge investment. And as I said, just not under any pressure, just Wild Growths. And with these 2 greedy minions in his hand, the Wild Growth makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and that we saw now one of the turns where he could have played the Xerus minion of the Polluted Hoarder. Would have been a little bit slow, it's just 4/2, but getting the Direwolf down and start pushing some damage is exactly what he needs here.
Greetings. Have you heard about our Lord and Savior Swipe?
I think we're about to, or at least Tessin is.
Yeah.
So this is the punishment of not having any of those big minions, right? Because yet again, there was the Hoarder, but that's still just 2 health. So that would have done the same role as the Direwolf in the swipe. So this is going to look really rough. The other options for Hoej.
There are no other options.
Hey,
you swipe this board.
He could innovate coin rag.
He
just
definitely could do that.
He has the ability to do this. On this board, it's probably not the best play, though.
That is a mechanically legal Hearthstone play that he could make this turn. But I like swipe. I think the decision here is coin hero power or not, and I like coin hero power because you clear the board of little token minions, and then next turn you can just slam innovate rag. Because your Cthulhu is still only a 6/6 at this point, so you could choose to go down the Disciple of Cthulhu next turn and ramp up to Cthulhu, coming out as at least an 8/8. But I just like rag on the board.
And I also just like the fact, for the want of a coin, at this point, when he's already really ahead, you know how Zoo loses by not having minions on the board. So you know what? Empty them, regardless. If it just costs you a coin hero power, do it, because you have good follow-up plays.
Gorilla Bot, not the greatest card to have in your hand in standard format. Not the most mechs in the new format that you can choose from.
But attacking those harvest goals.
Yeah, exactly. So Gorilla Bot is going to be left in the hand to transform, and now. Oh, okay. Dark Arakoa is a big deal. Now we are definitely going down the Innovate Cthulhu line. That is what's happening now. Power Overwhelming is in hand for Tessin to bust through this, but he needs more than that as well.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's like, he needs +1. He's got Fandral. But unfortunately, there's not many choose ones in Zoo.
Yeah.
But at this point, it's a 3/5. So it's something.
Now I've got it. You play Fandral this turn, it lives. You get another Peddler, and then you take Xeris #2, and then it turns into Ancient of War the next turn. That's the play.
Clearly the play Tessin needs to make to win this game.
He's going to go for some strange juggler line instead of obviously the superior play of playing Fandral and getting choose one card. No, I'm kidding. So yeah, the juggles are going to go off here, and it does mean he's not going to get to Power Overwhelming this turn, but it lines up a possible Power Overwhelming for the following turn. He's seen one swipe being used already, but there are 2 Disciple of Cthulhu's coming down right now, which are indescribably huge in this situation, because not only do they mitigate the board pressure, that is another +4 to that Cthulhu in his hand, which he can play next turn.
They mitigate the board pressure this turn and wipe the board next turn with their buffs to Cthulhu. This is going to be insane, and this has just gone all wrong for Tess in this game, I think.
Warhorse Trainer, he's getting all the dead synergy cards. Yeah. Fandral, no synergy in his deck. Warhorse Trainer, no synergy in his deck. Last game he was a warrior, and he even had Warhorse Trainer synergy in that game. Doesn't have it in this one.
No, like you said, the play is clearly Peddler Xeris now into Finley.
Sure. Yeah. These are the worlds that Shifter Xeris creates. But Innovate Cthulhu is going to come down. This ends the game, not this turn, but there is literally no answer. The one saving grace is BGH from Xeris, but that is a Tomb Spider, not going to get the job done, and that is just going to be game.
Yeah, and even a BGH, when there's Ragnaros as a follow-up for Hoej, it's going to look pretty nice.
Sick. Dragonhawk, nailed it.
Yeah, that's exactly what he needed. Dragonhawk, it to live, not die, and 18 power overwhelmings.
Yeah, so in a perfect world, he could have picked up a low-cost Beast Taunt, Silverback Patriarch, Iron Fur Grizzly, etc. That keeps him alive for 1 turn, keeps him scrapping. Definitely wasn't going to be enough to pull out the game. So this Cthulhu Druid is doing work, and this has been a story of the last few tournaments I've been casting for the last couple of weeks. Was this kind of joke deck for a while? It's suddenly come out and is one of the powerhouses of the meta. Because beforehand, everyone was saying, Cthulhu Druid, that's just the deck you play on day 1. Like we've moved past that, but now suddenly it's back with a vengeance.
Yeah, I think since the build's been refined a lot more now, it does just go off the back of Dark Arakoa though. Like if that wasn't a card, I think the deck would be a lot worse, because 6 mana, 5/7 taunt, and +3 to Cthulhu is
that's
crazy.
the weird part, right?
It's +3.
+3. Firebat made the point earlier, it's though that Druid can play Twilight Elder and those 2 work together. So you get the +1 from Twilight Elder and you get the Dark Arakoa. That brings your Cthulhu up to 10, because Druid need a 3-drop a lot of the time. But yeah, that +3/+3 is a little bit obnoxious sometimes. But Tessin has a good fallback here again. Aggro Shaman against Cthulhu Druid is a matchup that we've seen go overwhelmingly in favor of the Aggro Shaman so far this weekend, primarily because of 2 of these cards in hand right now, Flame Tongue Totem and Totem Golem.
Yeah, it really allows just an extra bit of damage to get through the taunts, and also the general game plan is to go minion heavy early and finish the game with spells. And you know what taunts don't do? Stop spells going face.
certainly do not. Living Roots Wild Growth Swipe is a decent opening to limit some of the pressure, especially since he's going first, has the Living Roots initiative. This potentially shuts down the Tunnel Trog opening. Not quite as effective against Coin Totem Golem, but still. Living Roots on the board, 2/1/1s turn 1. That's kind of what you want against an aggro deck.
It's definitely better than passing.
Sure is.
So the Totem Golem does come down, and this the usual play of Coin Totem Golem if you have a 1-drop to then follow up with afterwards. Put more power on the board early on and build from there. But this is the second game in a row that Hoej has had a good removal early on versus a deck you really need it with, as we saw a similar opening against the Zoo deck.
Yeah, so Hoej's going to consider his options. He can take out the Totem Golem right now while preserving a 1/1 on board, but he can also just commit his Wild Growth, which means next turn he can Blood Mage Wrath the Totem Golem. He can even just swipe the board if a swipe becomes available. So yeah, I like the Wild Growth overall. You would not expect this Totem Golem to be interacting with your 1/1s on this turn, so you probably get them to stick around afterwards.
Yeah, and also Wild Growth gives a nod to the game plan overall. It's not about... You do need to slow the Shaman down like super early on, but Wild Growth and ramping up is how you're going to win the game later, right?
Hey, that seems like a passable draw. Divine Shielded 4/2 is fairly effective against this board. There's another Divine Shield on the other side, but you can deal with that if you want and just straight up contest your Divine Shield against the 4 health of the Totem Golem. Looks like a solid plan in this situation, but what you have to consider making this play is how do I then interact with Feral Spirits?
Yep.
So Feral Spirits is in hand from Tessin, but even if it wasn't, it's something Hoej would be considering. So if you play the 4/2 here and Feral Spirits comes down, does your hand deal with that situation?
I mean, you'll have Wrath and you'll have the 4/2. So you can kill off the spirits, but then the golem's still alive.
Yeah.
But you still have a 4/2 because the Divine
do
Spirit.
still have a
because
4/2.
the Divine Shield if your opponent doesn't deal with it in a different way.
Yeah, I think I like playing it. You still have plenty of health to play with right now. The damage isn't ramping up too quickly.
And also, because there's Wrath and Swipe, like you could just lead up to like a turn 6 Wrath Swipe. And, you know, even one turn to do an even bigger board play because you can just push the extra damage. And it looks like that's what Hoej's going to go for.
Yep, so we are going for the Cthulhu's Chosen here, and I'm sure we will see Feral Spirits in response to this to try and prevent that trade, because that trade of the Divine Shield into the Totem Golem is miserable right now. On top of that, he has the perfect curve, really, whereas if he sticks some minions on the board now, Flame Tongue Totem pushes through next turn with his 2 mana, and then he goes straight into the Doomhammer on 5, potentially. So this makes his curve look pretty appealing, but as you said, Hoej does have removal options to try and limit some of that Flame Tongue value.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking, do we just go Drake here? Because you're sort of keeping up with the Shaman on board, and then next turn, especially now double Wrath, next turn there can be Wrath Swipe, double Wrath, and that's the turn where you just destroy the Shaman side of the board and then build on it from there.
Yeah, so how good is Flame Tongue Totem right now? Well, I mean, question 1, how good is it? Question 2, how aggressive do you want to be with it? Because I think the Drake trade has to happen, and then you just kind of expose it to the board. But looking at the hand, Doomhammer plus Lava Burst already is a big deal in terms of damage. But you are expecting to encounter some big taunts anytime soon, but Hoej has them nowhere in sight right now. Might need to get that Blood Mage down on the board just to cycle extra cards so he can get to a taunt more reliably.
Yeah, and you could just Blood Mage into Wrath to kill the Golem off, kill the 0/3, and even though you use Wrath to destroy the minion as it's, you know, its forward damage effect, you get the cycle from Blood Mage anyway, so it kind of has dual benefits.
He could also essentially cycle 3 cards this turn. The Blood Mage is a slow cycle. He could Blood Mage Wrath, and just Wrath for 2 twice on the Totem Golem and really try and pull through his deck for those Emperors and Druids of Claws, etc., Dark Arakoas. I'm definitely okay with Wrathing for 4 because you also gain a life that way. You get to hero power as well at the end, which is very relevant. But I think some play involving Blood Mage happens this turn.
I also think as well, like if you double Wrath to cycle, the cycle's great, but then Wrath's actually very powerful hitting for 3. A lot of the time against Shaman, there's a lot of, you know, things that you can just kill off straight away for 2 mana. So going for a slightly different play and going for the Disciple of Cthulhu. Just wanting to have a bit more power on the board, like, because Disciple of Cthulhu does actually kill totems, whereas Thalnos doesn't, unless it's the 1/1, of course. So yeah, I mean, this is still okay. You know, it seems Hoej's just feeling pretty safe and doesn't need to really cycle too much when he can do things like Blood Mage Swipe, for example, in the future.
Yeah, and this was decision time for Tessin. We were almost always going to see the Doomhammer come down. The question was, do I have it? Do I get to just go face in this situation? Tessin decides the answer is no. He's going to use the Doomhammer for a bit of board control. Cthulhu is not what Hoej would have wanted to see here. And again, those 2 cycle cards are now kind of stranded in his hand. The Blood Mage and the potential cycle of the Wrath as well. So he's really going to want to dig through. And he's like, since the Doomhammer's up, he now just doesn't want to commit the Blood Mage yet because he wants to get the spell damage out of it. So he's definitely a lot less deep in his deck than he could be potentially if he took some alternate lines on the previous turn.
Yeah, and also that turn's going to give Tessin a few ideas about what that hand looks like. It's either going to be very late stuff, you know, like anything above a 7-drop as well for a Druid is normally just Cthulhu or Ragnaros, because all the rest is 7 below. And then it'll be removal. So Tessin will probably have a really good idea of what's in Hoej's hand. You can definitely play accordingly.
Yeah, Tessin decided to, was starting to decide to go for the Thing from below that turn, but then bailed out, went for a wider board instead, trying to get value out of these Abusive Sergeants, and the Tunnel Trog on the board has value as well with the Lava Burst in hand, so I think that's Ragnaros being drawn. Yeah, these are not the cards that he's looking for right now. How did the removal options line up, though? Blood Mage Swipe doesn't quite... I mean, the swipe's great, but just Blood Mage doesn't really achieve too much.
You could just Wrath for 1 for the Divine Shield.
Yeah.
And then see what happens. And then the backup then is just swipe the Trog and leave the 0/1 totem up.
Yeah. Could also, if he wants to try and go aggressive here and try and set up a potential Cthulhu lethal of his own, can also potentially do it by swiping face, right? Although he then runs out of mana. No, that would leave one of the minions up on the board.
The play would definitely be Ragnaros hit phase.
Sure.
That's the aggressive play to set the Cthulhu up.
Yeah, but still,
and then Cthulhu all damage to face as well.
I just think it's such a big deal that this Blood Mage and this Wrath is still in his hand right now because, you know, it's easy to say because of the exact draws that he ended up with. You know, if he'd have drawn...
anything else.
Right, if he'd have drawn Emperor, Dark Arakoa, you know, something like that straight off the top, you say, okay, great, well now he has taunts in his hand and he has removal, but because of the draws he's had, it seems like cycling out those cards would have been more efficient on the previous turn, but he is using that removal to good effect now to be able to clear the board, and Mana Tide Totem brings a nod out of Tessin. He knows he just needs to dig through his deck to pick up maybe one more burst spell to seal out this game. Mana Tide, a great tool to do that for him.
Yeah, and he's respecting the Thanos there. He doesn't want to see another swipe cause some havoc and go face. And there's Sylvanas coming out from Hoej there. But Tessin has put himself in a really strong position here. What's the Cthulhu on? Is it
10-10.
Oh, is it? Oh, is it only 10-10? I thought it was a bit more than that.
I think we've only seen the Disciple and the Cthulhu's Chosen come down.
But yeah, and the Hoej's just going to have to go for it. I think he just needs to rag and hit the 5/5 at this point.
I don't see another viable play, yeah, but even if that happens, there is 3, 5, 7, 9, 14 damage as long as the 3/2 lives if the 5/5 dies, so not seeing too much of a way out of this right now for Hoej. I think Rag ends up being the best play from his perspective, but we can see even if he wins the 20%er here, it's going to be game over.
Yeah, you know, from our knowledge, it would look like Wrath cycle into Dark Arakoa or Emperors would do more than Rag here.
Yeah.
But obviously, Hoej, the second you Wrath and it's none of those cards, then you've just lost. Whereas Rag immediately gives you the chance, from Hoej's perspective, of course.
Yeah, Hoej definitely considering his options here. He might just decide that, you know, Rag is never going to be enough to win the game here anyway, so in which case we need to Wrath, but he just needs to live this turn, right? And then potentially Cthulhu can get the job done on the following turn. But we can see this is all in vain. Tessin gives the well played. He knows that Rag outcome was irrelevant. Flame Tongue Totem ramps up the damage as well, but he already had him covered, so Aggro Shaman is starting on the comeback trail now. It has to come all the way back from 0-2 down, but the amount of Shaman 3-0 sweeps that we saw in top 16 seems to indicate that this deck is more than capable of doing it.
Yeah, but Hoej does also have a Shaman of his own as well, so that's going to be at least close to a mirror match. And then he has his Reno lock he can pick into as well, and that's always feels risky. It's like, so do I have Reno on 6? No. Okay, I've lost.
Yeah.
You know, that's pretty much the way the matchup goes.
Do I have Reno on 6? Yes. Oh, I died on turn 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other way around that it goes. But, I mean, Hoej is one of the players in this tournament deciding not to ban Shaman, which has been a controversial topic. What I will say is his lineup has a really solid Shaman counter in it. He has the Cthulhu Warrior with Harrison in it to potentially lock out the Shaman, but suddenly if your Warrior gets banned, as Tessin did in this series, and I imagine that was Tessin's thinking, really, is that Hoej was expecting his Warlock to be banned, but Tessin just said, Just ban the warrior, sweep with shaman. Easy.
Yeah, that's the plan, and you can do that in last arrow standing. So, looking at the hand now, it is going to be Hoej's Reno Lock is going to be the pick into, and I like this. He only needs to win one, so you may as well pick the not mirror first, and then just rely on the mirror if need be. But Doomsayer, it's a pretty good card versus this deck.
Yeah, and we have heard, or I have been listening to Firebat and Gara talk about win rates of cards in opening hand a lot over this weekend. I'm not sure if the viewers got treated to it during their cast together. I didn't actually catch a lot of it, but opening hand Doomsayer in Reno Lock is one of those cards that sends your win rate through the roof. And when you pair it up with an Imp Gang Boss follow-up, it suddenly gets even more insane.
Yeah, and this is a big deal as well because Tessin will know Doomsayers in the deck because the players do know the deck lists, but this is never something you can play around, especially in a Reno deck. So Tessin's going to commit, and we'll see if the Doomsayer is coined out or whether Hoej's going to just hold on for one turn because of the abusive being the turn one play, not like a Trug.
Oh, it's so scary. If Totem Golem comes down here, then suddenly second abusive deals with it, but I guess that's about it, right? Because there's no Crackle anymore. Lava Burst can't be cast. So it should be a fairly safe Doomsayer in this situation.
Yeah, it looks like Hoej's eyeing up the coin into a 3-drop, though.
The only thing you get punished by is the second abusive and Flame Tongue Totems. That's
a Rock Buyer.
A Rock Buyer, sure.
Yeah, so suddenly
that's
to add up to a good amount of cards.
So the problem with coining the Doomsayer on turn 1 is that you don't have a follow-up. It's like, great, I kill an abusive sergeant, then I life tap, and then and
then the problem is they play first.
Right, exactly. Right, so I life tap, and then you just play your stuff again. So he was trying to set up a Doomsayer where he gets initiative to curve straight into the Imp Gang boss, but because it was the most aggressive play possible coming out on turn 2, the Totem Golem, suddenly there's too many outs to deal with it for Hoej to want to risk it.
Yeah, and Tessin has the option to Finley here, so he doesn't have a great follow-up after this. He's going to value the totem instead. As obviously we've seen, he's playing things from below, so anytime you can just squeeze in the totem, it's going to make things from below much more powerful when you draw into it.
Yes, indeed. And Imp Gang Boss is going to be able to start picking up some value on this board. He has the clear with the Demon Wrath, which is important. He can make these attacks in any order he wants, since the Demon Wrath has no effect on his side of the board. Now we have 2-1 and 1-1 against nothing, but 2-1s and 1-1s are cute and everything. Here's a 7-7.
Yeah, pretty good response. And there's, at the moment, no real way to deal with it from Hoej's side, but that is a pretty important draw with the Ooze. Ooze can just destroy the Shaman plan of Doomhammer winning me the game. It's so often the idea. But he's going to play Doomsayer and rely on the Flamewreath Faceless to attack into it, which then is effectively a heal for 7 this turn.
Yep. This is 2 mana 0/7 Taunt is a card that a lot of people would put in their decks. People used to play Shield Bearer. It happened. 1 mana 0/4. People used to play that thing. So yeah, gaining 7 life for 2 mana is definitely worth it in that situation. He can sense that Doomsayer is never going to be in a situation where it goes off. The best he'll probably get out of it is a tempo play where he AoEs the board and drops Doomsayer, but these games generally don't go long enough for that to happen. So.
Yeah, and the good thing here is it looks like Kodo can get some work done for Hoej, just completely straight up remove one of the 2/3s and then clear the other one with the minions. It does only leave the 3/5 and a 1/1 on the board afterwards, but if the Flamewreath Faceless trades in to the Kodo, it's taking some damage, and there is Shadow Flame in hand as well. So we're edging towards the turns where Hoej can play a minion Shadow Flame, like Othering Party.
Did you say trade? If the 7/7 trades into the 3/5?
I said if. I didn't say it was going to. I said if.
That seems monumentally unlikely. Sure, Hoej can do it on his terms,
yeah,
but the 7/7 goes face.
They can interact at some point in the game.
I knew what you meant. I just wanted to SM Orc.
So Siphon Soul is actually pretty good here.
It
Straight
was.
up remove 1.
It was really fantastic
until
before there was a second 7/7 that came on the board.
7/7. And this is really crazy because of the way the game's gone in terms of Tessin's draws. These 2 Doomhammers haven't been played.
No.
So the Ooze, which is normally perfect and would be perfect when your opponent's had Doomhammer in his hand for so long, just isn't coming into play at all until now, by the looks of it.
And there is 11 more damage coming in this turn, which puts him all the way down to 6. So even with the Ooze and the Farseer, he is not going to have the survivability to outlast Tessin's hand here. So this has been a nice experiment with the Reno lock. Unfortunately, as you said, if you don't get those big heals early, and now that Healbot has gone, there is pretty much only the one big heal in terms of Reno Jackson himself. If you don't get that early on, you are going to struggle immensely against this deck, and it really all comes down to Tessin having a really awkward hand against that Doomsayer.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of crazy how it escalated from there, and the second Flame Wreath as well. Because if there was still just one, and like maybe another one or two other minions that the Kodo can deal with, then the Siphon Soul would have just cleaned up and potentially bought Hoej enough time to heal back up.
So the Ooze is going to destroy the Doomhammer. He's going to Shadow Flame the Ooze. Oh wow, actually this is a play that potentially keeps him alive. How much mana is available?
So I think can re-equip Doomhammer.
He can re-equip Doomhammer. Okay, Horse Rider Lava Burst will get the job done. Otherwise, his out was Spell Power Totem for lethal. Didn't have enough mana to weave in the Doomhammer with something else, but good recognition of the situation in the end there from Hoej to find a play that kept him alive on the board. But that is...
And you know what the play was? The Kodo trading into the Flame Wreath Faceless
and then a Shadow Flame.
Yeah. Told you.
Wow. Why so petty, Raven? Why?
You started it.
I've ground you down over many years into coming over to the dark side and not being a chirpy, friendly person. You're now petty like the rest of us.
I feel like you're the Joker and I'm Harvey.
Something like that, yeah. I like that. Let's go with that. But anyway, DC comic references aside, we have a Shaman mirror to close out this series. And I believe this is extremely close, if not exactly, a 30-card mirror match. The Shaman deck is pretty refined at this point. 6-0 came up with this list that, you know, chucked in a couple of the really powerful mid-range Shaman cards, the Tuskar Totemic and the Thing from Below. And then even with Thing from Below in your deck, you're still playing Finley, but that addition of Tuskar allows you to discount Thing much more efficiently. It's a deck that
even at like 4 or 3, you know, you're looking really good for a 5/5 taunt. But this matchup is often there's just one swing turn. And it normally happens when both players are heavily committed to fighting for board early on, based on their hands, of course. They fight for the board early on, and the first person that can't keep up or loses the board normally just loses because the other player just snowballs that advantage out of control. They're always ahead on board. There's no real combat mechanics in this deck unless they're taking in like a lightning storm or something, but that's not really that common. And then the game just ends because they have minions repetitively hitting their opponent's face and the other guy doesn't.
Yeah, although they are very, very different decks, the matchup kind of resembles the Zoo Mirror in that way, where it's just early fight for board. As soon as you're there, you know, 2 or 3 minions versus 0. Whoever gets to that position first, game over.
Yeah, and
like there's just no coming back from
You actually end up doing plays that generally look really strange. Like yesterday, we saw a Lava Burst into a 2/3 when there was a minion that could kill it, but that ended up being able to trade with more minions on that turn, which then we did see just snowballed out of control.
Indeed. So Hoej has the decision to make here. It's Tunnel Trog on turn 1 with no overload to follow it up, or Finley on turn 1 with no real intention to hero power in the near future. So, you know, this is always kind of an awkward decision. If he does Finley, if there's no real powerful response from the opponent, he can potentially then totem on the... if he Tunnel Trogs, he can potentially totem on the following turn, use that to leverage Flame Tongue Totem afterwards. But that's easy to prevent from the opponent having answers to it.
Yeah, I was interested about not playing Finley there, because I thought one of the lines as well was Finley, and then you can Trog Abusive turn 2, and you don't care about really losing Finley, whereas Trog's going to gain potential from Overload in the future.
Yep, definitely true. But if you... just pick up a lightning bolt here like a god, then
suddenly
suddenly you look like a very, very smart man. So I'm sure we'll see Finley Finley coming down here alongside the lightning bolt. There are options with the Abusive Sergeant and the Flame Tongue Totem, but they just look rather inferior in light of the pickup of that lightning bolt.
And now we're going to see a pretty important one. Oh, it's going to be Shapeshift, I guess. Shapeshift is going to help at least trade with some more minions. The extra +1 damage on demand is really impactful. And then there's the go-to Doomhammer 3 attack for each swing is also pretty reasonable.
Yeah, heal is valid there as well. Heal almost always strictly better than armor in most classes that aren't warrior, because you can use it for ball control as well. But generally, if you don't get the aggressive hero powers, you know, the Warlock to get resources or the Hunter to push damage, you want to be able to affect the board. Looks like he's actually going to go with the Abusive Sergeant here to load up more board presence as opposed to using the Lightning Bolt, which is interesting because the Lightning Bolt curved him out quite nicely on the following turn where he could just jam Flame Tongue Totem.
Yeah, and I think this is just the idea of just, I'm going to have more minions than you because you cannot punish me going wide. There is like almost zero punishment in the deck.
Sure.
So then now I just have more minions to trade in different places, as opposed to the issue you can run into with Flame Reef Faceless, where it's just one huge minion.
Now, what have we said this whole time? We said this matchup is about board control, and early control of the board is everything. And now twice, Tessin has turned down using a Rock Biter weapon to remove a threat on the board. He had the 1-3 Tunnel Trog that he could have Rock Bited on turn 1. He has a 1-3 Finley that he could have Rock Bited this turn. Are his eyes lighting up at that Doomhammer Rock Biter combination? Because I don't think that's going to get the job done for him.
Yeah, I think that may be the case, and the problem is that there's a long way to go until that's going to happen, and you can get to the point where that won't matter, you know, about the Rock Biter, because there's not enough pressure on the board at the moment to even damage them. That, let's be honest, even 10 damage makes a difference to Hoej's life.
Right.
Like, he's not got any minions on the board to get to that stage anyway.
And now what? Yeah, I mean, because now we're committed to the line of not using this Rock Biter for removal, right? Especially since we have the Druid Hero power as well. The Rock Biter interacts kind of awkwardly now.
And the Finley traded anyway, so
right.
What does the Rock Biter? You know, it's just not as good being like a really clean kill on a 3 health minion.
Indeed. And as we said, this is the situation that's so difficult to come back from, because this minion pressure is just going to ramp up more and more here from Hoej. Flame Tongue Totem is probably going to come down on this turn, which will bring out the Rock Biter almost certainly. You cannot leave that thing sat around on the board just representing 4 damage a turn.
And when something like this happens, suddenly you're forced into the Rock Biter, so your original plans failed, so you may as well have used it earlier.
Right.
It's really, really difficult situation for Tessin now. Is just look at the board, like you Rock Biter the Flame Tongue, but guess what? There's still 3 minions alive.
You have to play Flame Tongue Totem, right? It looks idiotic, but you have no totem hero power, and you have a thing from below in your hand. Okay.
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah.
Flame Reef Faceless is going to come down here. 7-7 on the board, which means that even the Doomhammer for board control isn't going to be enough, because that 7-7 is going to push through too much damage.
Yeah, this is just the death knell, I think, for Tessin now.
Yeah.
And again, it is as soon as the board is lost. Honestly, it's that quick. The one turn the board is lost, it's almost always game over.
Yeah, I feel like the Flame Tongue Totem into thing from below line was a potential... You know, if there was a brick, you have a 0-3 taunt this turn, right? Because the Flame Tongue Totem probably gets dealt with.
Yeah.
And then on the following turn, you have a 5-5 taunt. So if a brick was drawn by Hoej on that turn, that time that you buy with those 2 cards can then maybe get you back onto the board with a Doomhammer.
Yeah,
you
that Feral Spirit could have been drawn and
right.
at least start to battle for the board, or at least delay for the Doomhammers to make a difference.
Yeah, but Tessin loads up the Doomhammer, wails into the minion a couple of times, but Lightning Bolt plus the Druid Hero power is going to seal this out for Hoej. And Hoej just keeps on marching through. He's making the statement saying, hey, I should have been on this stream the whole time, all right? I'm the favorite to win this tournament. He's happy to be here, and he's taken advantage of the situation. Great performance from him, sealing out the game 3-2, primarily with his Cthulhu Druid, but then the little splash of Shaman at the end to wrap it up.
Yeah, I think that's you know the power of the Shaman deck, right? And if your opponent gets to lock into it, if you're choosing not to ban it, there's always a chance they're going to take a win or so. But it was a pretty crazy set overall, especially with that Cthulhu Druid putting in some work. Did you enjoy it, Nimsh?
Yeah, definitely. It was really exciting to see Hoej taking 2 first games with Druid, and I was just waiting for Tessin to bring the Shaman that actually gave him a 3-0 in the first top 16 match. I was thinking like, hey, he was just trying to try those decks that didn't work for him and then bring the Shaman and 3-0 Hoej, but suddenly Hoej was able to actually turn it around in an excellent Shaman versus Shaman, like almost like a handbook game. From his side, just taking care of the early board control and being able to take the match. And Reno Lock didn't work that well versus the Shaman, but overall I think Hoej showed an excellent performance from his side. And we actually have Hoej with us. So, hey man, how are you doing after this win? Top 4.
Hey guys, yeah, I'm feeling really, really happy right now. I also got top 4 last time, so it feels really, really good.
So I think Sixo tweeted that you played Cthulhu Druid really well, and you got that 7 drop on turn 7 in an excellent way, and also
yeah, it was really impressive.
The Cursed Blade from your opponent
yeah,
planned.
Heavy skill, really well played by me.
Yeah, I think to be fair, what we were saying about the Cursed Blade was it sped up what the outcome of the matchup was probably going to be anyway. So although it just ended the game a few turns earlier overall.
Yeah, but I was really scared that I would get swept by the Shaman in the end. So I didn't want to play. I hate the Shaman mill. It's the worst mill in the game.
Yeah.
So I play Arena Lock, but then when he plays double 7-7 and I have cut my BTA, so I'm like, There's nothing to do for the winner. Like
you had opening hand Doomsayer as well, right?
Yeah.
And then the board was just awkward. Like coining Doomsayer did nothing.
yeah,
Cause
exactly.
you
Coining Doomsayer wouldn't give me initiative. He
Right.
would just totem up and make his things from below cheaper.
Yeah.
Or something. But I got a really good turn 3 when I could coin game boss and he only could totem, but it was not enough against the 7/7s.
Yep.
Balance.
Yeah, and can you take us through the Shaman mirror? What do you think is the worst mirror in the game, and what did you do to actually win it?
I don't play a lot of Shaman, but the Shaman is so good, it feels stupid not to bring it, so I just took 6 of Shamans this with me. And I even think I made mistakes, placement, position, played the wrong run drop. It's like I'm really not confident in the matchup compared to the others. But it's like it's like the one who gets the board first often wins. It's hard to swing the board back.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there's no way we clears.
We talked about that exactly, and Tessin actually had Rockbiter in his hand for the entire game. So you played turn 1 Tunnel Trog, and he didn't Rockbiter it. And then you had a 1/3 on the board. The Finley you played afterwards, he didn't Rockbiter it. So he had Doomhammer and Rockbiter in his hand, and it was like his eyes were lighting up. But Doomhammer was like, that's not going to win you the game. Like you need the board.
He really wanted to do the Tindemit phase. I
Right.
can't blame him from that.
Yeah. Everybody loves the smoke,
Yeah.
right?
So how can you take me through your road in the tournament, because it was the first match that we featured you, but you qualified again to the top 16, and in top 16 you slaughtered Orange backstage 3-0, I heard.
Yeah,
so
broke back with Druid. So
so what happened, and why is okay? So the first question would be like, who have you faced during the 9 rounds of Swiss, and how was your score in the end?
it was 7-2 in the end, and not that many big names I've been facing. The only players I've lost to was other Danes, Slug and Hydra.
Yeah.
Slug is who's also in the top 8 now.
Yep.
But not any known names that I think you know of. So I got a little lucky, I think, maybe.
And what was the best performing deck? Yeah, you said the Druid was really good. You won versus Orange with the Druid specifically.
Yeah.
And last DreamHack Winter, you did really well with the Paladin
Yeah,
deck.
with Secret Paladin.
Yeah,
It's
so
like you can ban this time, so you can't go full broke back. But I think like my Cartoon, my Insert Winterlock and Cartoon Druid has been performing really well.
Nice. Is it like was this deck so good from the beginning, or is it specifically good for the Last Heroes standing metagame?
I think it's like people don't play a lot against Insert Winterlock, so I know the matchup way better than they do. The same thing is like for JJ's Priest, because they don't know how to play against it, but JJ know how to play against the matchup. So we got an edge. Maybe it's not the same tier level as Shaman, but everyone knows how to play against it. So it gives me an edge that way.
Raven was telling me you were surprised your Reno Lock wasn't banned in that game. Is that true? Like, what do you think it was powerful against in terms of the lineup?
It's just I thought I could 3-0 him with the Insert Reno Lock. Just, but it makes sense that he banned my Kitchen Warrior, because that could also
that sets up the Shaman sweep,
exactly.
Right?
So I'm gonna face either you or Ball Control next, right?
Yeah. I think so.
I'm actually not sure. I don't remember the brackets, and I'm not sure if we have the bracket ready right now. So I will have the bracket ready in just a moment. But Raven, do you have any more questions for Hoja, or?
No, I think we've covered everything. Yeah. So just congratulations, moving on to the next round.
Thanks, man.
Solo?
No, just well played. Congrats. Moving on, just being Mr. Consistency again. 2 top 4s. Well played, man.
All right. So Hoja, thank you so much for joining us, and good luck with the next match.
Thank you.
All right. Guys, that was the first match of the top 8. We still have 6 more matches for you as we go and crown the champion. Give us some time to prepare the next pair of players, and we'll be back after a break.